one very important piece of information that comes from the swap market is the swap curve. Okay? In the previous video, we saw how to compute the swap quote for 1 year. Okay? I could do a similar calculation for a swap with a 2-year maturity, and that would be another fixed rate for that swap. I could do the same thing for a 3-year swap and so on until 30 years or so. That set of numbers, that set of swap quotes for different maturities is what we call the swap curve. Okay? The swap market is a very liquid market, so every day you have banks quoting these rates. So for example, let me open here a web page. You can easily find swap quotes that extend from 1 year to 30 years here, for example. Okay, so this set of numbers, right? Okay, for reasons that will become clear in a second, we want to extract the discount factors that are implied in those swap quotes. Okay, as we saw in the previous video, that C that we computed is the coupon rate on a fixed rate bond that is priced at par. Okay, and so we can also interpret this number as the yield to maturity on that bond. Okay, we want to extract the zero coupon rates that are implied in these bond prices, if you will. Okay, again, I can look at the swap quote as a fixed rate bond that pays a coupon equal to that swap quote. All right. Furthermore, what traders actually do is to combine information from two markets. So up to 1 year, we are going to use LIBOR rates, okay, because these work exactly like zero coupon bonds. It's a very liquid market, and I can immediately extract the zero coupon rates that come from that market. It's immediate, right? After 1 year, we switch from the LIBOR to the swap market, okay, and we want to extract the zero coupon rates from the swap quotes as I just discussed. Okay, so here's a very simple example where we have this is a minimalistic example in the sense that we have just one example of a LIBOR rate and then just 2 examples of swap quotes. But you can, I mean, once we know how to do this with with just these 3 lines, you can easily see that you can extend this to the big market with 30-year quotes. Okay. So basically, what we need to do is the following. We have here some LIBOR rate. Here it's the 6-month LIBOR rate, and then we have a 1 year and the 2-year swap rates. Okay, so the timeline looks like this. So this is the first one, the 6-month LIBOR. Okay, I observed the rate, which was 0.37%. So I can think of this as a bond, but I don't even need to do that. It's immediate that the zero coupon rate for 6 months is that very same LIBOR, 0.37%. Okay, and then I have a 1-year swap that is quoted at 49%. It pays coupons every 6 months, so it means that I'm going to get this coupon here and that coupon there, right? And as we saw in the previous video, we know that the way we got to this price was by that formula where we said that the value of the fixed leg has to equal the value of the floating leg, and the value of the floating leg has to be 1. Therefore, the value of the fixed leg has to be 100%. So again, I can look at the swap quote as the coupon on a bond that is trading at 100% at par, right? So these are the cash flows, and that is the price. And then similarly for the 2-year swap, which is quoted at 0.91%. So these are the cash flows, and again the price is 100%, right? So basically what I have here it's this structure of cash flows, and I can extract zero coupon rates from these prices exactly like we did in that chapter on the yield curve estimation. So I can either apply a bootstrap here, or I can apply one of those more sophisticated methods that we have seen, like the Nelson-Siegel or the Svensson model. Okay, but it's again exactly the same as we did in that chapter, because I have transformed these swap prices into bonds. Okay, so I will not do the rest of the calculations here in the video, but you have here the final results. You can check at home that whether you are able to get these numbers. Let me know if you have any questions then. Okay. Okay. So now, why is the swap curve such an important concept? Okay. So the idea is the following. Until now, if I asked you what is the risk-free rate, let me open here the browser. If I asked you what is the risk-free rate for 5 years, for example, you would probably answer something like, okay, I'm going to look at US Treasuries, okay, so bonds issued by the US government, and I'm going to look at the 5-year rate, and that's the answer, 0.49%. Right? What I'm going to try to convince you now is that the answer to this question, what is the 5-year risk-free rate, should not come from this market, from the US Treasury market, should come from the swap market, from this swap curve that we just saw. Okay, so your answer to what is the 5-year risk-free rate should be this number here that comes from the swap market. So more precisely, if I ask you what is the zero coupon 5-year risk-free rate, then it's not immediately this number here, because you have to extract the zero coupon rates, as I just discussed. Okay, but the point is it should come from this market, from the swap market, rather than from the treasury market. Okay, so that's not very intuitive, but it is what traders do in practice. So let's understand why that is the case. Okay. All right. So the first comment is the following. A pure risk-free rate is not observable, meaning the following. The US Treasury bonds are indeed the closest thing we have to a risk-free bond, but they are more than that. There are other reasons that drive investors to like that asset. So the prices of Treasury bonds are pushed up by those additional factors that I describe here. Okay, you can read those later on. Okay, but the final result is the following: the yield on a treasury bond is too low. Is too low relative to what would be a pure risk-free rate. Okay, so the idea again is that there is not something that is just risk-free and nothing else, because the treasury bonds are risk-free, but they are also something else, which makes the price be too high or the rate be too low. Okay, so what we are going to do is look for something that is a proxy to that unobservable asset which we would like to have, which would be something that was risk-free but nothing else. Okay, so that does not exist, but I will try to convince you that this LIBOR swap curve that we just discussed is a reasonable proxy. So it's a reasonable approximation to something that we cannot really observe. Okay, a pure risk-free rate that is not contaminated by anything else. Okay. All right, so this LIBOR swap curve has two parts. The first one is the short end that comes from the LIBOR rates. Okay. So first of all, what is the LIBOR? Again, the LIBOR is the rate at which banks lend to each other. Okay, so typically banks have a good rating around AA. Okay, so this is not the best possible rating, which would be AAA, but it's good enough in the sense that the likelihood that the AA rated bank will default on a short period of time. So recall that the LIBOR only applies for periods up to 1 year. So the likelihood that the AA rated bank will default over 1 year is relatively low, or it's very low, right? So even though this is not absolutely risk-free, is reasonably close, okay? So that one is relatively easy to see, right? Now the second part of the curve, this swap part that starts from 1 year and extends out to 30 years, is not so easy to see why we should look at that as risk-free. But the argument is the following. What I can do is this. I can do a strategy whereby I do two trades, okay? So the first trade is I lend money in the money market to a bank that is right now rated AA, okay? So assume I lend for 6 months, all right? The bank is now rated AA, so the likelihood that it will default over the next 6 months is very low. So I can think of this as risk-free or almost risk-free for the first 6 months. When I get to the end of the 6 months, I have to roll over the loan. So I take the money that I just got from this bank, and now I look at the bank and see what is the credit rating of the bank right now. Is it still AA? Okay, so if it's still AA, I can lend it to him again and lend for another 6 months. But if the bank has deteriorated and it has gone down, now it's no longer AA, it's for example A or BBB or something like that. So the bank is getting into trouble, the rating is becoming worse. Well, what I can do is, instead of lending to that bank, I will lend to some other bank, which is fine, which is still with a AA rating. Okay, so what this gives me is that every 6 months, I refresh the credit quality of the loan such that it is always AA at the beginning of each 6-month period. Okay, so I keep doing this through time and maintain the credit risk of these loans, of these rollover loans, always in AA. Okay, that was one. The second thing that I can do at the same time is to enter into a swap whereby I give the interest that I get from this bank. So I pay floating in the swap, and in return I receive fixed. Okay, so you can see that with these two things together, what I basically get is a rate of return that is equal to the fixed rate in the swap, with essentially very little risk. Okay, so this argument shows you that the swap rates that I observe in the swap market are really almost risk-free. Okay, so again, the point is that in summary, the treasury rates are too low. They are risk-free, but they are more than risk-free, and therefore they are even lower than what the risk-free rate should be. And the LIBOR swap curve that we just described actually provides a better approximation, a better proxy to those true but unobservable risk-free rates. Okay? So bottom line, from now on, whenever we need to price an asset, we always need to start with some risk-free discount rate. We may then add a risk premium if the asset has some risk, but in all discounting, whenever we have to discount cash flows, we always need a base rate, which is the risk-free rate. So from now on, what you should do when you need to use a risk-free rate to price anything is to use swap rates, okay? After doing the extraction of the zero rates that are implied by those swap quotes. But the point is, you should always go to the swap market to get your risk-free rates.